Social work and poverty in an unequal world, assignment 2. Introduction. Poverty in Australia today remains an issue for all. Those who suffer from the disadvantage that it presents, those who believe it does not, and those policymakers and government officials whom are accountable. The most recent poverty report compiled by the Australian Council of Social Service 2016 found that 13.3%, equating to 2.99 million Australian people, were living below the poverty line in 2013 and 2014. And this sector of the population receives social security payments as their main source of income. Disengaged Australian youth experience significant rates of poverty. In the discussion paper prepared by the Education to Employment E2E Working Group 2015 for the Unimetro Youth and Community Partnership, the term youth or young person was considered to be ages 12 to 15 and over, and the upper age range was considered to be 19 to 24 years. The E2E Working Group 2015 further defined disengagement in this context as the following. Young people who do not have a stable learning relationship with an adult or institution, taking place at school through a distance learning program with an employer or training provider. The important distinction in this program was the stability of the relationship. Another term discussed to describe disengaged youth is NEET, N-E-E-T, which is the acronym for Not in Education, Employment or Training. Although this term is rarely used in Australia, as Kelly indicated in 2012, 6.2% of Australian people aged 21 years were not involved in education, employment or training, as identified by the longitudinal survey of Australian youth and reflected in the Victorian Council of Social Service 2015 snapshot, Youth Unemployment in Victoria and Melbourne's North. Further current data indicates that the areas of high unemployment remain service-starved and lack substantial support networks required to assist the poor. Completion of Year 12 rates remain low in Australia, and as initiatives to encourage school leavers to stay and complete the final year have failed, this remains a factor which continues to poorly affect the full-time youth labour market. Although youth unemployment varies across the Australian states to date, it represents just fewer than 40% of all unemployment in the country. That is, more than 1 in 3 unemployed Australians is young and between the ages of 15 and 24. Data. Some further data. The Australian Council of Social Service Social Policy Research Centre identified that between 2013 to 2014, 30% of young people aged 15 to 24 were living below the poverty line, and that 24.5% of people aged 15 years and below were living with the same disadvantage. 40.6% of children in one-parent households are more than 3 times likely to be living in poverty, as opposed to 12.5% of children living in a 2-parent family. There may be some crossover of the age of children and the age where people are defined as young people. Nonetheless, children living below the poverty line are at greater risk of living in poverty in adulthood. There are some hotspots of unemployed youth across Australia. These are areas across the country that have concentrated populations of youth unemployment. These have become known as hotspots and are indicated on the map below, which has been compiled by the Brotherhood of St Lawrence Australian Youth Unemployment 2014 snapshot. These areas seem to be located away from intensely populated centres and may indicate more affordable living conditions. As you can see, they are concentrated away from the centres of the city, and generally in areas which are service-starved.
Many people believe that disadvantaged youth are living in poverty due to being lazy, slack and unmotivated to work. However, this is not always the case, and there's a wide range of reasons why a young individual may experience poverty, ranging from access to work, education and family lifestyle. Many youth have a part-time or casual job which gives them some sort of income. However, their employment may be limited to a few hours per week due to their other commitments, such as schooling and university. This leaves them to rely on welfare payments and government assistance, as their main source of income to meet their needs. Poverty amongst youth may be learnt through an ongoing cycle of poverty throughout generations and living in a socially economic low lifestyle. This is also referred to as a generational poverty, which is poverty that has been evident in at least 2 past family generations. According to ACOSS, poverty is not just caused by individual circumstances, but by major inequalities built into the structure of Australian society. Poverty can disadvantage a young person's life through many aspects, not only financially, but also in education, social life and health. Poverty can be a significant factor that impacts on the likelihood of finishing high school. Researchers at Melbourne's Michelle Institute have found that only 60% of students from a low socioeconomic background are likely to finish high school, whereas 90% of students that come from a more socioeconomic advantaged background finish high school. Poverty also has been shown to be a significant impact on a young person's mental health due to the constant high stress levels and financial insecurities and reduced opportunities. Unstable housing or living arrangements can also impact on a young person's life. Overcrowding of the family home, the daily cost of living and family disagreement can lead to a child becoming homeless and living in poverty. In Australia, there are approximately 22,000 young people between the ages of 12 and 18 that are being recorded as homeless, and many more are living in a dangerous or unstable society.
First question asked whether there were any other impacts of the lived experience of poverty has in our group of disengaged youth. Cosner, Burson and DeMarco outlined some of these impacts, including the development of physical and mental problems, lack of education, unemployment and the increasing rates of crime seen in youths enduring poverty throughout the ages of 15 to 24. Being exposed to poverty at such a young age can have drastic effects on the development of both physical and mental milestones, which may develop into physical and mental health problems. These problems may also be the result of inaccessible and unaffordable healthcare options. Being disengaged and or homeless also affects youth's ability to obtain and maintain paid employment. Barron observed that when youths are unemployed and have experienced other hardships throughout their lives, such as homelessness, violence, abuse and relative deprivation, they are more likely to turn to a life of crime as a means to support themselves monetarily or as a way of rebelling against the society who has wronged them throughout the duration of their lives. The last effect I've observed is the stigma attached to being a disengaged or homeless youth. Kidd in 2006 stated that homeless youths were amongst the most discriminated against poverty groups in society. This can result in youths feeling as if they are socially excluded and isolated, which may feed into the development of mental health issues and perhaps falling deeper into poverty. My second question asked whether there are any settling payments which disengaged youth can rely on, and whether I believe that these payments address the poverty adequately, or do the rates of these payments contribute to poverty. Centrelink outlines some payments available to our group of disengaged youth. These include youth allowance, living away from home, crisis payment and AB study. These payments are inadequate and unrealistic for supporting youths in their day-to-day lives. They cover the absolute minimum. I believe this as I'm currently in the age group of youth and receiving Centrelink payments. These rates of these payments are more likely to contribute to poverty rather than addressing the issue.
The selected social work theory chosen to support disengaged youth will be dependent upon the cognitive development and understanding of the individual person. All theories, including cognitive behavioural theory, strength-based and ecological theories, are also relevant depending upon the context and support needed. Support provided by a counsellor in a group setting will differ to those provided by an agent-based service provider who may support by providing assistance with housing or financial assistance. There are many social work theories that are applicable for those within the profession to practice when working with disengaged youth. In social work practice, an ecological approach may be used to better understand how individuals' biology and systems of relationships such as interrelation between personality and immediate others, community and social interaction, and culture, attitudes and ideologies from their environment. This theory is used to define the strengths and weaknesses of the traditional processes between the systems and the effects it has on the individual's current situation. Strength-based practice is also a key approach which may be used by social workers working with disengaged youth in group settings or in an individual level to empower them to utilise their strengths and self-determination to support themselves whilst receiving support from services and social workers. Cognitive behavioural therapy supports the individual to personally reflect upon their personal situation using their own emotional insight. This allows for further development towards positive personal change in an attempt to better one's position within their environment. Working with a young person, it is important to abide by the Australian Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics, Values and Principles, in which one must separate their own personal ethics and abide by the guidelines stated within their professional setting. A social worker must display high levels of respect for their clients as an individual, their human rights, and provide a duty of care. A social worker is required to uphold confidentiality unless the need for disclosure is required due to a client being at risk of harm or harm to others. Social workers are liable to promote the self-determination and autonomy of youth, actively seeking to enable them to make informed decisions on their own behalf. The social work profession values honesty, reliability, empathy, reflective self-awareness, competence and commitment when working with disadvantaged youth. Social workers with clients from various cultural beliefs and backgrounds are required to provide a cultural safe environment and abide by anti-racist and anti-oppressive practice principles. A social worker must be mindful of boundaries when working with young people, as they are required to maintain professionalism amongst communication with clients within and without of their workplace. This is achieved by social workers separating their personal identity from their professional, and under no circumstances are social workers to engage in sexual relations with clients. In conclusion to this, a social worker must not breach the code of ethics, as it has been incorporated within the profession's standard to provide adequate service for their clients' overall health and wellbeing.
Social work value conflicts, breaking confidentiality. There will come a time in most youth workers' careers when the words, "You're not going to tell mum or dad, are you?" are heard. A social worker may feel reluctant to do so, but should there be circumstance that necessitates it, they are required by law to report not only to the parents but also to the Department of Human Services or the police. The conflicts involved are dignity and worth of the person, and we wish to sustain the right to autonomy even for the youngest clients. Importance of human relationship when breaking a young person's confidentiality may reduce their capacity to trust and integrity. We must behave in a trustworthy manner, not only with our clients but with their families and communities we serve.
Okay.
Illegal acts. Sometimes good clients do bad things and the rules can be a little bit grey. This is particularly familiar for social workers who are working with clients who are in the legal system or abusing substances. The conflicts involved are dignity and worth of the person, as the AASW Code of Ethics states. Social workers seek to resolve conflicts between clients' interests and society's interests in a socially responsible approach, coherent with the values, ethical principles and ethical standards of the profession. The importance of human relationships and trust is paramount to a client-worker relationship, and informing on clients' illegal activities is in direct conflict with that. Integrity, when we must practice in a way that is honest and responsible, we are also bound to the laws and policies of the agencies and communities we serve. Social justice, sometimes the law may seem unfair or our client's situation may seem unwarranted, especially if they have experienced discrimination or injustice in the past.
Okay.
Involuntary commitment. No matter which discipline a social worker is practicing, at some point they will come across a client who intends to harm themselves or someone else. These can be some of the most confronting moments for a social worker. The conflicts involved, the dignity and worth of the person. The client should have the right to decide how to live their life However, it is recognised that the Code states social workers may limit a client's right to autonomy when, in the social worker's professional judgment, the client's actions or potential actions pose a serious foreseeable risk to themselves or others. Importance of human relationships. There is a chance the decision to breach confidentiality will damage the rapport you have formed with the client.
Okay.
Ways to handle ethical conflicts. Always refer to the Code of Ethics. You should always have a copy of ASW Code of Ethics on hand. Spend some time reading through the code, pinpoint the values that come into conflict in the specific scenario and assess why they are essential to social work practice. Check state and federal laws. Be sure your evaluations are thorough, not only ethically but also legally. Remember, you can't help anyone if you put yourself into a situation which is outside the law. Seek advice from a supervisor. No matter how long a worker has been in the field, there will always arise the need for a second opinion occasionally. Supervisors can be helpful in leading you to make the most appropriate decision possible in a difficult situation. Consult the AASW. One of the most crucial advantages of being a member of the ASW is having the support of a national organisation. You can discuss your situation confidentially and get professional advice on dealing with any issues. Take time for critical reflection. Once you have done your research and heard from all the experts, take time to process the data before making your decision. In the end, you need to be able to stand by your assessment and be certain that you have done the best by your client. Approach if a Centrelink social worker. When dealing with youth, a Centrelink social worker would be required to assess any risks or evidence of disengagement from education and or from employment. Strictly operating within the guidelines of the AASW Code of Ethics 2010, the Children, Youth and Families Act 2005 and the DHS and government legislation involving youth. The risks that would be associated with the disengagement from these systems would be the increased likelihood of substance abuse, crime, homelessness and mental health issues. These risks are further compounded should the youth also be socially disengaged and be isolated from other systems and supports such as family, community, support services and friends.
Okay.
Similar concepts. Youth is well represented within most of the concepts, with youth in unemployment and underemployment, disadvantage, poverty and social exclusion being the more pronounced. Much of youth consider that there is a scarcity of jobs and the strain connected with education and homework is very substantial. This can pave the way to disengagement from school and to a lack of goal setting.